Guyana's coastal plain is 6 feet below mean sea level. This means it can be vulnerable to the effects of climate change, for example, higher tides. Cognizant of this fact, the coalition government has ramped up measures to mitigate the possible effects of this type of natural disaster. On the InfoHub-In-Depth, we take a look at 3 agencies which are stepping up to the plate during the high tides and other similar challenges. First up is the Civil Defense Commission, which continues to fulfill its mandate and live up to its motto, one people prepared, protected, as it ensures citizens in low-lying areas are prepared for the impacts of flooding.
Are you ready to embark on a truly epic adventure to an undiscovered corner of South America, where some of the most spectacular natural attractions are unveiled within a beautifully diverse landscape? From the wetlands and savannas to the ancient mountains, magnificent waterways and lush enriching rainforest would provide a vast playground for some of the most exotic and breathtaking creatures on the planet, including many of the world's giant species. This untouched land of mystery and wonder serves up an exclusive experience for travelers. So are you ready for a new, awe-inspiring adventure? Welcome back to nature. Welcome to Guyana.
The Civil Defense Commission played an integral role in mitigating the effects of the recent high tides residents along the coast would have experienced in September and October. In anticipation of the October tides, the CDC issued several advisories to residents in vulnerable communities, particularly in Regions 2, 3, 5, and 6. Also, the Commission visited several communities where they distributed sandbags to residents to help them prepare and distributed informational flyers. Residents were also briefed on when to expect the high tides and the precautionary measures to take in the event of flooding. Member of Parliament Jennifer Wade said the CDC's efforts were greatly appreciated.
We know that come tomorrow, the spring tide will be hitting this community, and so I'm happy that the CDC could have put in the pipeline this initiative, because a few weeks back, we all know what happened, and so I know the residents are happy for this because it will be able to cushion them.
Residents in the region had also expressed their appreciation for the assistance.
Well, for any country, it's very important, right? Because you don't know when emergency will strike. And in terms of the sandbag, some of the houses are flat, so they could use it to at least prevent the water from getting into the house. And it could be very, very useful.
Well, at least we are warned, right? And we expect something is coming, not like before that we didn't really expect this. It's like when you get up, you just see the water. But we are warned, so we are trying to put things in place.
Over the course of the spring tides, the CDC, through the National Emergency Monitoring Unit, monitored the impacts of the spring tides across the coast.
CDC Monitoring and Evaluation Specialist Olive Gopal explained that following assessments of the recent spring tides in September, the Commission was readily prepared for the impact this would have had in low-lying communities.
One of the things that we did is to start an early PR campaign. So it meant that residents along the coastal plain who we anticipated would have been affected by this got notification early as to what to expect and the level at which the tides are coming in.
According to the CDC official, this was met with a positive response from residents in affected communities.
That worked very well because it gave residents the opportunity to prepare themselves. There were precautions which were given and those were followed. So I think in terms of the proactiveness of the Civil Defense Commission when it came to information sharing and preparing the residents along the coastline for the impact of this spring tide, we were very successful at that.
Gopal noted that residents appreciated the early warnings.
When the tide actually did hit, the feedback we got, it was that people were grateful for the early warning. And across the board, we've heard that at different platforms in which people had the opportunity to speak. The early sharing of information was very useful. It meant that people had ample time and they knew exactly what sort of measures to take to prepare themselves to lessen the impact of the tide.
The CDC also continues to actively engage with regional officials to ensure they understand the importance of disaster preparedness. The Commission has been decentralizing their operations by training personnel in each region to respond to disasters when they occur.
In a recent interview, Director General of the Civil Defense Commission, Lieutenant Colonel Kester Craig, said as a result of constant engagement with regional and local bodies, the effects of flooding have decreased.
I think the impact was not so significant in most communities because the pumps, or most of the pumps, or all the pumps I was informed under the main city council control were actually pumping water off. And as soon as the tide turns, and at the time when they were able to open the cocoa doors and sluices, they were able to drain the water faster off of the land.
The Director General noted places like Alboystone was not heavily affected when in past times the community was unknown to easily flood after prolonged spells of rain.
So it showed that the work done by the Civil Defense Commission is supporting that community in cleaning the drains and reduction in garbage disposal in the drains and the canal, and the work done by the main city council and other stakeholders that supported Alboystone was actually fruitful.
In May of this year, after receiving reports of flooding in low-lying sections of Madhya, Putaro-Siparuni Region 8 and other areas, the CDC dispatched a team to assess the situation.
The team, headed by Captain Salim October, conducted assessments at several locations hardest hit by the flash flooding. The flash flood was as a result of torrential rains with water levels reaching as high as 3 feet in certain places. According to Madhya's mayor, David Adams, the CDC's quick response was timely and welcomed. He explained that moving forward, a plan to regularize home construction, especially in low-lying areas, with the housing department will be initiated. This will avoid the recurrence of homeowners being affected by the seasonal flooding.
The Civil Defense Commission continues to build capacity by conducting several exercises aimed at enhancing its response to natural disasters.
One such exercise conducted by the Hydrometeorological Service. Participants of CDC's Volunteer Emergency Response Team were exposed to key aspects of weather pattern monitoring. The training exercise was aimed at building the VERT's disaster response capacity. The one-day session, which was hosted at the National Weather Watch Center in Timeri on the east bank of Demerara, saw participants being instructed in several areas of weather monitoring and early warning systems. In an invited comment, meteorologist at the center, Lyndon Alves, said the session encompassed training in climatology, identification of probable hazards, and the usage of weather forecasts.
I'll take them through climatology, because as a disaster risk manager or someone who's working in the disaster risk area, you should know what the weather pattern is for the different areas. And then we're going to try to tie that in with the hazards that are most probable. Here's where it's important to understand what are the triggers for some of these hazards so that when an alert is issued, you can understand.
Community-based Disaster Risk Management Officer of the CDC, Maria Hari-Narain, described the training as a key component of the VERT's disaster response capacity.
This component of the VERT program would help in terms of letting the VERTs be aware and be knowledgeable of what techniques or what technical implementations are in place locally to cater for early warning, weather predictions, especially as it relates to tsunamis. So we were here at the Hydrometeorological Center in Timeri, which is called the National Weather Watch, to see what techniques they use and the technology that they use to help with early warning for disasters.
Participants of the program are also trained in the area of community-based disaster risk management. This plays an important role in rendering assistance in the event of any disaster.
The community-based disaster risk management training has been described as key to alleviating the effects of possible disasters in Guyana. To this end, the Civil Defense Commission hosted a training program at its headquarters to equip volunteers with the necessary skills before sending them out in the fields. The team traveled to the Bath Woodley Park Neighborhood Democratic Council, where they were divided into teams and tasked with using a specific CBDRM tool to assess their assigned area. Speaking to InfoHub, the Voluntary Emergency Response Team participants expressed their eagerness to be participating in the exercise.
What we did just now was a transit walk. So we went about the community. We did basically a mapping of the community, and we visited a few community members and asked them about the disasters or any problem that they're experiencing within the community.
Because once we can understand like how often it happened in the past, so then we can predict or try to analyze or assume like how many, like the occurrence in the future, and then understanding that we can develop and prepare and implement certain preventive measures.
Jason Bess from New Amsterdam plans to use the knowledge and skills gained from the CBDRM program in his community.
My area in New Amsterdam, we are along the coast, so major problem here is also flooding. So that is a big aspect that I would want to take back so we can be more prepared and we can have better steps put in place to buffer the effects of flooding.
We now turn to the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, the NDIA, that works around the clock to improve the drainage situation, especially in the capital city and along the coast. In this effort, primary drains were cleared throughout Georgetown.
The NDIA had cleaned several of the main or primary drains around the city and have been maintaining them. This is no easy task as it requires both mechanical and manual cleaning. There was even an instance of the Princess Street Canal having an entire washing machine in it. CEO of NDIA, Frederick Flats, explains.
Nearly all of the drains were blocked up. Some had a lot of vegetation. But that would not discourage us in the NDIA because that's our job. We clean drains, and we have the interest to see an improved Georgetown. We are using all of our energies here in the NDIA to see a restoration of the city. But for our part, we are going to improve the drainage system.
Despite the NDIA making such a tremendous step, it is still dependent on the Georgetown Mayor and City Council to cater to the small secondary drains. Flats explained that the smaller drains contribute to flooding in the city.
We all know that Main Street by courts would normally flood. Again, even though the water in the Church Street drain may be low, that floods. That's a question of internal drainage. I think in Quamina Street between Main and Carmichael, you normally have some flooding there. Again, that's a question of internal drainage because that's localized flooding.
The residents of Georgetown will also have a major role to play. Flats expressed his desire to have the citizens of Georgetown to work along with the NDIA and the MNCC and not use the drains as receptacles for solid waste.
From the NDIA's perspective, we would like citizens to do their part. First, they should observe that a lot of works are going on. Some of the main things that citizens can do would be to desist from disposing their solid waste into the channels.
Flats made the call and residents answered. In Tiger Bay, persons could have been seen actively clearing their drains so that water can flow.
We come with some clean out driver put the new rubs bin, and truckers come. When I come for the morning, you have them in truck and show me.
George and a few other persons from the area took their time to clear blockages, which was mostly bottles and plastic bags. The NDIA has been working along with the MNCC to help in cleaning and maintaining the primary drains and canals throughout the city. Due to the extensive work done by the NDIA on the major canals in Georgetown, the rate of drainage has increased exponentially.
The National Drainage and Irrigation Authority has already cleaned several main drainage canals across the capital city in its continued collaboration with the Georgetown Mayor and City Council.
Along with the main drains, we'll also look at the sluices, the outfall channels, the pumps. We have the mobile pumps, and in Georgetown we have at least 2 fixed pump stations, anything to do with the main drainage system.
The authority has already cleared more than 70 kilometers of main drains around the city by both mechanical and manual means.
The NDI's strategy is to clean the channels mechanically and then maintain them throughout the year by a monthly manual cleaning. In terms of the mechanical cleaning, we have already signed contracts totaling approximately $62 million for the excavation of most of the channels, and also about $92 million for the manual monthly cleaning. That cost that I gave there is for the entire year.
With the use of this clean and maintain method, the authority will not be rushing to clean during the rainy season, but will be ready at all times for the rain. The NDIA CEO made a plea to the residents of Georgetown.
We would like citizens to do their part. First, they should observe that a lot of works are going on. Some of the main things that citizens can do would be to desist from disposing their solid waste into the channels. It will cost us a lot of problems and sometimes money. Apart from aesthetics, it's really a costly thing when we seek to dispose of our garbage in an irresponsible way.
The NDIA continues to work along with the MNCC to help in cleaning and maintaining the primary drains and canals throughout the city. Equally important is the fact that the NDIA also works in tandem with several other agencies, including Ministry of Public Infrastructure Sea and River Defense Department, NARI, GRDB, Ministry of Public Health, GLDA, and the Ministry of Communities, as well as the Civil Defense Commission. During the recent high tides, the NDIA joined forces with these agencies and rallied their teams to ensure that apart from temporary emergency response measures, more long-term solutions are provided to Guyanese living along the coast.
Sea defenses are extremely instrumental in protecting lives and the livelihoods of citizens residing along the coast. As part of its mandate, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure is tasked with ensuring these bulwarks are properly maintained at all times.
Over in Myconi Berbice, the government has awarded 2 contracts to facilitate sea defense works. One of those contracts facilitates the construction of 325 meters of riprap sea defenses along the shoreline in Prospect. That project is valued at $160 million. The other contract, valued with a $143 million price tag, also seeks to construct 350 meters of riprap sea defenses between Prospect and Brooms Hall in Myconi. These projects were initiated to reduce the effects of flooding in the surrounding residential areas that are threatened by the extensive loss of mangroves in the Danzig to Fairfield area. With a $460 million contingency allocation for emergency works along the Myconi foreshore that was approved prior to September's springtide, 10,000 tons of rock material are in the process of being delivered to the affected foreshore. However, with September's springtide, the Myconi foreshore has been left crippled by the breaches. Consequently, Minister of Public Infrastructure, Honorable David Patterson, at the time, said he had met with contractors concerning the breach of the Myconi's earthened embankment caused by the September springtides that ended October 2.
They are to give me by tomorrow morning what equipment they have available, what stone they have available in their stockyards at the moment, and how they see their opinion on the easiest, fastest way to get materials in here.
After receiving estimates from numerous contractors, BK International and A&S General Contractors, Inc. received contracts for the emergency works in the Danzig to Fairfield area of Maikoni, where a 3-kilometer zone of earthened embankment was severely impacted. The emergency works to reduce the effects of flooding by the spring tides in the Maikoni area then moved into high gear as this October 25 spring tides approached. It is estimated that 400 households across 65 coastal communities have been affected by the sea defense breach caused by spring tide during September 26 to October 2. Thousands of tons of rocks have been delivered to construct a rock armor within the area. In Fairfield, A&S General Contractors Incorporated has constructed 100 meters of riprap structure with more works to be done. Within the Danzig section, BK International has responsibility for trucking material in via the road along the access dam to the foreshore. That access dam was widened and enhanced to allow the steady flow of the heavy-duty vehicles. This extensive operation in Maikoni is not without challenges. 4 barges sank after the spring tide that ended October 2 due to the unrelenting waves of the Atlantic. Added to that, the second week of October, a tugboat sank in the same area. Additionally, because of the damage done to the foreshore by the same spring tide, the transport of material to the breaches within the critical 3-kilometer zone has been a difficult task. It is with this in mind that the 2 contractors on the ground are working progressively towards the breaches from the Danzig and Fairfield sites. Some farmers joined the emergency efforts to arrest the situation in Maikoni to mitigate the efforts of flooding that was anticipated in the looming spring tides of October 25. Neil Machado of Danzig spoke with an InfoHub team on October 23, 2 days before the spring tide.
Since the destruction with the flood and stuff, there was a lot of progress made. Mr. Tiwari BK is here right now, and they're bringing in dirt for building embankment and plus boulders coming in. And I was fortunate to Mr. Kevin Samad and infrastructure to also have employment with them, as far as using my tractor to pump this water from this canal into the Belny. And I also was fortunate to have employment with MMA, working the government pump to pump the water from the Belny to the Atlantic Ocean. It was a very devastating what happened and stuff, but I like the progress of what's been happening. I love the progress that's going on, so I'm very fortunate and thankful for that part, especially for the employment, because the loss what I had in my rights.
Residents rallied around the Minister of Public Infrastructure, Honorable David Patterson, as the emergency works continued.
For everything that you've said, we have our confidence in you, and we're going to stay strong.
And I will not miss this.
Thank you very much.
Onika, a subsistence farmer, is among some of the persons who were affected by the breach of the sea defense following the abnormal spring tide. The spring tide would have washed away produce and increased the salinity of the soil. After meeting with residents in Maikoni, Minister Patterson followed through with a pledge to place a permanent engineer at the site for emergency works. That person has responsibilities for overseeing the ongoing emergency works in an effort to keep residents abreast with information concerning the progresses made. Another promise that came to fruition was the appointment of an overseer. Minister Patterson had asked the Woodland Farm Neighborhood Democratic Council to nominate someone to function in this role. This individual is being paid a stipend through the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Even though flooding did recur in Maikoni following October 25 spring tides, the contractors maintained a heightened work pace during the challenging circumstances. A number of residents commented on the current emergency works.
You're working day and night because you're in your bed and you hear engine beating and the truck like throwing the boulders.
Every day you see the sand trucks, the big load trucks going out, they're carrying in the things.
Since 2015, the coalition government has undertaken numerous sea defense projects to protect the vulnerable coast from being inundated with water. For Lenora in Region 3, the construction of 325 meters of riprap sea defenses was completed in July of this year. During the finishing stages of the project, District Engineer for Region 3, Dennis Ramsing, provided an overview of the project.
Firstly, let me say the structure constitutes of a toe, lower slope, a berm, and an upper slope and crest, and embankment.
The project is expected to remedy the challenges associated with overtopping in the area. A nearby vendor recounted her experience.
Before there was water coming in because down there all there was flood.
The administrator of the Lenore Cottage Hospital also reflected on the challenges faced by the hospital due to the flooding.
So you find that the water would overtop the seawall into our drain outside, and then the drain cannot take off that amount of water. So you find it will flood the hospital compound.
Taxi driver Parmahes Hariram, who works around the Lenore Cottage Hospital, also shared his thoughts.
Oh, no flooding, no flooding. No water, no overtapping, nothing overtapping, everything are there.
In 2018, BK International finalized 300 and 260 meters, respectively, of riprap sea defense in 2 phases, and Tulsi Prasad Construction completed another 300 meters in Whalers Delight on the west coast of Demerara.
Had government not taken the intervention or initiative to come and construct the riprap sea defenses, then there would have been a lot of damages along the embankment. There would have been breach of the embankment, which would have resulted in inundation to immediate residential and agricultural lands, which would have been more severe. But because we were monitoring the area over some time, we had seen the need to take this intervention early.
According to Ramsing, these riprap structures, which are built of rock and other material, used to protect shorelines, require less maintenance and are flexible. Most of the materials for the riprap's construction is also available locally. Major sea defenses projects were also executed through other administrative regions. Most notably, the Public Infrastructure Ministry, through funding from both the state and the Caribbean Development Bank, have constructed riprap sea defenses on the Essequibo Islands of Leguan and Wakenham.
Within the Infrastructure Ministry is a specialized group whose work contributes to alleviation of flooding in many neighborhoods. This is the Community Organized for the Restoration of the Environment, or CORE group.
Launched in 2017, the first 20 core groups were mobilized. The groups used workers within communities across all regions to beautify its environs. Protective sanitary gear and cleaning equipment are provided to the groups to execute their mandate. Martin Gall, leader of the Georgetown Core Group, walked us through one of their projects in Meadowbrook.
So what we did, we cleaned the parapets first. And as the residents saw us cleaning the parapets and so on, they tell us about the drain. We come around and we clean the alley, we dig the drain, get it back out to get water flowing again, run out the people's yards. So now right now everybody's yard is dry and the water's flowing again. And now you can stand from here, from Jamun Drive, and you can see straight through to Meadowbrook Drive.
The Georgetown Core team leader tells us about the state of the environment prior to their intervention that had impeded the movement of water in the community.
We couldn't even see from here to Jamun Drive. It was really dense. They had what you call mocka bush, as well as some very thick buckbead and some other dense bush.
Residents in the neighborhood commended the work of the core group.
Well, I'm satisfied with the work done. In the past, it was very bushy, nasty, full of mosquitoes, but now you get a clear view, it's clean, it's just living standards, more or less.
It didn't do before, right? And I noticed that the people come around and start cleaning. And it was cleaning the front, and I talked to them about the back, and they said, well, they would do it, right? Just we need to get water. And I see they get a water, and they started cleaning. And, it's very good. It's very good for me and for everybody about here.
These core groups fall under the Special Projects Unit of the Public Infrastructure Ministry, and each group has 10 workers. Hinterland and far-flung communities also benefit from the work of these groups.
The effects of climate change will continue to be felt, and as such, citizens can be assured that these agencies are working around the clock to safeguard vulnerable communities from any natural disaster. This has been InfoHub in Depth. Join us again next week, same time. Goodbye.